Okay, is this better? I'm hoping. We see it okay? Great. Okay, for anybody who is following along on the recording, I am sorry for all the hiccups that we are having. And mainly what happens is we're having issues with the audio. So if you're following along on the recording, there's probably a piece of blank air, and now we're back online. So again, to go ahead and try to start one more time with our audio hopefully staying in place, we are going to have office hours for the final assignment homework number 5. Okay, and I want to go ahead and get started reviewing that because I did get a couple of questions on some of the assignment details. So what you guys should be seeing now on your screen is the PDF file for the assignment. So it's the same thing you guys should be able to download from the course website if you can't see it. So the big thing to note here is that you are choosing either the emergency department or a clinic. You do not need to do both. You're not researching both. You are doing one or the other. Now, if you have an urgent care at your facility, I've had a couple of people ask me, well, what if I have an urgent care that I'm interested in? I don't have an emergency department and I'd rather do the urgent care versus a clinic. You can definitely do an urgent care. That is perfectly acceptable. Okay, so you can do an urgent care if you do not have an emergency department at your facility. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is you are going to be submitting a memo. Okay, so what I will be grading is the memo. Okay, so submitting a memo based on your case study with some recommendations for Dr. White here. Okay, so what you want to have in that memo is what department we're looking at and why. So did you choose emergency department? Did you choose that urgent care? Or did you choose a clinic, and why did you make that choice? So what about that was interesting to you? Okay. You also need to identify some characteristics of the patients of that department. So you're putting together you're looking at the patient cohort. Okay, by now this should be pretty familiar to you guys because we've been looking at it in every assignment up to this point. So you want to know what are the top 3 diagnoses for that particular patient group. Okay. And you want to know what is a generalized customer signature. So when we're talking about a generalized customer signature, you can do a generalized signature for all 3 diagnoses kind of grouped together. Okay, so who uses this department? And when we're talking about those top 3 diagnoses, it is up to you to figure out how you want to determine top 3. Okay, so you want to do, it is up to you. Are you determining top 3 by cost? Are you determining top 3 by number of unique patients? Are you determining top 3 by number of number of encounters? So all of those, any of those are an acceptable choice. You just need to decide which one you're going to use and then say, this is how I chose that. Okay. We also want to know what time frames are the most heavily used in the department. So we want to know things like day of week, time of day, is there a season of the year? You know, when is this department most heavily used? Okay. And then you want to have a summary of what your data mining shows. Okay, so you need a summary. You need to have identify your department and why, identify the characteristics of those patients, and here's the things to include in that. You want to identify what time frames, and then you want to put together a summary paragraph. Okay. Once you've got your summary paragraph put together, then you need to do a recommendation of either an improvement project or a comparison project. So what should we do next? Improvement or comparison, and why you think that is the best choice. And I will tell you right from the get-go, this last bullet right here, hands down, is where people lose points. Many people forget to do the recommendation of an improvement or comparison. We do really good up to that point and then forget to recommend a project. Or you say we need to do something and you don't tell me what kind of project it is. I get a lot of students who do the why, we need to do something, but don't say what kind of improvement, or what is it, an improvement or a comparison project. So hands down, this is where people lose points. If somebody's going to lose points, it's probably going to be on this last bullet. It's the number one thing I see. So make sure when you are reviewing your what to submit list and comparing that to your memo, please, please don't forget about this last bullet, because it's easy points that you need to specifically identify. I recommend a improvement project, or just improvement. I recommend an improvement project because ABC, or I recommend a comparison project between my facility and XYZ facility because blah. So please, 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 a lot of people get the why and then forget to tell me what kind of project it is. Okay, so when you're looking at the details for the assignment, I tried to kind of, aim you in that direction. So choose either or. You're not doing both. Okay, you want to look at the top 3 diagnoses, and you want to create a customer signature around those diagnoses. Okay, so think about usage patterns. Think about what are other things we might be interested in besides looking at, day of week. Would we be interested in time of day? For those of you who are in the southern facilities, we talk a lot about snowbirds, right? Or even in the northern facilities, you might have snowbirds. So what time does the idea of having that snowbird, does it actually match up with what you're seeing in terms of usage? Okay, so think about patterns that you might be, other patterns. I tried to give you some ideas around common characteristics, but you can really look at any pattern that you're interested in. Okay, so then once you've got your case study put together an analysis of the data. So we want to know, are there any changes in trends? Do we see any changes over time? Are there, what's our usage? When does that occur? Does that match up with what we know about staffing? So I know that there are some students in the facility, or in this course this time around, that are in HR. What might you guys know about staffing, or what might you be interested in terms of staffing, and how does that matching up to what the usage is? I know we've got a couple of people who are have a pharmaceutical background, who are working in the pharmacy aspect of it. So what about prescriptions? Are we seeing any seasonal fluctuations in terms of prescriptions? And is that what you would expect to see based on what you find in terms of usage? So there's a lot of things that you can look at in terms of patterns and analysis, and kind of connecting the dots, if you will, when you are looking at this different usage. And what we're looking at, one of the reasons that he's interested, our customer here, Dr. White, is interested in looking at this type of thing, is we need to figure out, again, future planning, right? We're always considering future planning at the VA. No matter what level you're doing things at, we're considering future planning. So we want to know if we need to do a project around process improvement, or if we should do a comparison project based on what we found. And with the comparison project, you want to identify, should we be looking at internal or external providers of those services? So if we're going to do that, then we need to if you're going to do external, what type of external are we talking about? Are we looking at external to other VAs? Are we looking at external to community providers? We've been doing a lot of comparison at the VA Lightly, right, around external community providers, mainly because of the choice program, right? So we're going to expand that now, and let's talk about emergency departments. And if we do emergency departments, then is it external emergency departments? Are they seeing the same kind of delays, or are they seeing different delays? Okay, what are you seeing in terms of usage of the emergency department, or is that something that you would want to have some further investigation on? Okay, if you're looking at a comparison project for an outpatient clinic, you might be interested in seeing wait times, right? Because that's something we're looking at access all the time with the VA, especially with choice. So that might be something to kind of consider, is what do we have in terms of access. With process improvement, right, you guys should be, well, not experts, but you should have a pretty good idea of what you might want to look at in terms of process improvement, or what techniques you might be able to use because of course 2, right? Course 2 completely on process improvement. So use some of the techniques around what you learned in course 2 to kind of give some ideas on where we might go with this, what techniques or tools might we use to start looking at some process improvements. Okay, so when we're looking at this, when you're giving that recommendation, a lot of times what I see is people will do that, give me the why, and they'll tell me, here's what I'd like to do, but they forget, again, to say, is this an improvement project or a comparison project? So you need to be explicit and state improvement or comparison. And as I've said already a few times, this is the #1 place that people lose points on this assignment, is they forget to say, are we doing a comparison project or are we doing an improvement project? Which are you recommending? And in some instances, I've also had students actually recommend both. So maybe they're going to do an improvement project, and then once they get the improvement project done, they can kind of think of that as part A. Then they're recommending we also do a comparison project to see if we've improved things relative to another facility, relative to an external community provider, that sort of thing. So think about or even if you're doing a clinic, maybe look at one outpatient clinic, right, versus another one in your medical center catchment area or in your division. So you can do these 2 types of projects, but we need to identify one or the other. Or like I said, in some cases, I've actually had students recommend doing both. So that is something that you might have as an option. So what kinds of questions do you guys have on the assignment? I think that covered what I had in email. So what other things do you guys have question-wise on the assignment? Anything in particular? Let me see. I'm just checking my email really quickly to make sure I covered everything that I got questions on that way. So let's see what, I'm also looking at is there anything on lecture that we have assignments on? Some of the lecture for both lecture number 10 and particularly lecture number 10, and then also some of the things in lecture number 9 should be somewhat review from what we've already looked at in what you guys have learned in course 2. Okay, so looking at some of the root cause analysis stuff, looking at some of the decision tree stuff. So there's different things that you can use from course 2 and actually from course 1 where we learned Bayes' rule, right, to kind of move forward with your recommendations. So what questions do you guys have? One thing I would we're gonna look at one thing. I don't know if you guys, let's see which one is this module. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at module 9 next lecture notes. So you guys are thinking up if you have any questions. So in module 9 lecture notes, one of the things I wanted to point out is looking at creating some of the association rules. So let me get this big. So this is actually page 3 in module 9 lecture notes. So if you are reviewing, following along on paper, it's page 3. And one of the things I wanted to talk about here is when you are looking for patterns, you can look for, and especially in this assignment where we're looking at putting together that customer signature, right? We're looking at patterns for the top 3 diagnoses. So what we're trying to figure out here is what might go with what. Okay, so what goes with what? And when you're looking at what goes with what, one of the things in this instance, I give you one of the items, right, is I'm giving you a diagnosis. So you can use, again, you can use a DRG, you can use an ICD-9, ICD-10 codes, things like that. And what you're looking at is what else do we know about people that have that particular diagnosis? Okay, so is it, do they have certain labs and then certain prescriptions that go with that? Is it people from a certain location? So we know, and as an example with this, right, with the diagnosis in certain location, we know about some people, if you have patients or veterans who were in the Vietnam era, so that we know that there are certain diagnoses that are now becoming associated with those veterans who were in the theater in Vietnam, right? So diabetes being one of them, that has now been linked to Agent Orange. So that looking at location with diagnosis. Another thing that you might have coming up with diagnosis and location is, I know that I don't think it's this semester, but I know in past semesters I've actually had somebody who was investigating some of the results of the Camp Lejeune water issues and think how that was going. So that would be one thing that might be in terms of location. You could look at things like, you know, income level versus appointment, or in this instance, right, we might look at priority. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this diagnosis, these HACP diagnoses, to put together customer signatures, and also to put together, in addition to customer signature, also put together the additional pieces. So you can really kind of look at how might we use what we know from the customer signature file to be kind of use that plus association rules to come up with some of these patterns. So you may have a zero-way association, or you may have a one-way association. You might have a two-way association as well, but that's one of the things to kind of think about as you're looking for these patterns. And one of the ways, for those of you who are visual people, one thing that you can use is if you go to the next page here. So this is page 4 of Module 9 lecture notes. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say today. Module 9 lecture notes. There we go. If you go to page 4 in your lecture notes, one of the things that I find really helpful is this bubble plot. And that's the example that I'm showing here. This is a bubble plot. So what we're looking at here is a bubble plot can really show you not just, can really help with these associations, right? Because here in this plot, we're looking at, on the y-axis, we've got the number of prescriptions, and then we've also got number of labs on the horizontal, and then the bubble itself is the cost. Oops, sorry to jump away from that. Everybody, hold on to your hats. Okay, we should be back on page 4. My mouse got the best of me, apparently. So when you're looking at this, what the bubble plot can really show you is if you hit 10 labs and about 11 prescriptions, so we'll go about 10 or 11 labs, 10 or 11 prescriptions, we really see a big jump in cost. So we might be interested to see what kind of costs we're looking at here. But when we go up a little bit farther, we're not seeing as many high costs. So there's something in here where we can really see, when you hit around like 10 to 12 labs and prescriptions, then it's that's kind of where we're at with things. So that's one of the things to kind of keep in mind here, is that you're really looking at this. When you're looking at the bubble plot, I find that's really helpful with this association rule, especially when we're looking at multiple associations. So if we're interested in labs versus prescriptions and where we're seeing the most things, right, you could use just a standard, you could use a scatter plot, you could use a bar chart, right? Any of those would show you number of prescriptions versus labs. But when we want to see, okay, well, how does that affect the cost, right? Doing something like this bubble plot.
I had a meeting in HR, so we may be late coming back.
Sorry, I'm not sure who. I thought I got everybody muted except for me. So hang on. Does that work or not? Let me just check right here. Okay, so I'm not sure whoever else is also on the phone. Can you guys just make sure that you've got yourself on mute? I thought I muted everybody. Let me try this. It's not letting. Let me double check. Okay, so everybody muted. Hopefully, it's just me now. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, awesome. I just wanted to make sure. I thought I had muted everybody, but apparently I had not. So to continue on. So I really like this bubble plot, which is one that a lot of people haven't used before this class, to really get that third dimension in there. And I think it's a lot easier to see than some of the three-dimensional plots that are available in Excel, just because having this bubble size really kind of it's easy to see. It's easy to explain to people when you're showing it in a presentation or when you have it in the paper, whether it's a memo or whether it's in a report, or even in your case study document. But that's one of the things I really wanted to point this out, this bubble plot out, because I think it's really, really helpful when you're looking at multi-way associations. When you get beyond just the, your standard tube axis chart, the Y and X axis chart here, I think this bubble plot really is a really good visual in terms of looking at how this, how you can see those associations. So, does anybody have any questions so far on assignments at all? Let me go back to here. We'll take a look at the assignment again. I'm just going to, instead of making everybody fly all over the screen, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we might need to take a look at. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I know this one ended up being a little shorter than normal because of all the audio issues, which I still don't know what is going on with that. I don't know why the recording is the thing that triggered it. I'm going to have to ask IT about that after we're done. So do you guys have any questions on the lecture materials? I'm just scrolling through them really quickly to see if there's anything that I wanted to point out in your lectures, in your lecture notes, other than that the bubble plot and the associations. Oh, this is one thing I did want to point out. So let's take a look at the comparison really quickly. So, okay, so this is Module 10 lecture notes. And one of the things I wanted to point out, this is page 3 in Module 10 now, if you're following along. And it's around the comparison. So if you decide to do a comparison project, what exactly are you going to compare? So you can compare yourself to, compare different levels. So you can compare within a level, right? You can compare department to department or similar department. You can also compare from up 2 levels. So maybe you're going to compare location to how the VISN or national performed. And that's what we've been doing up to this point. We've been doing a lot of that type of comparison between levels. You can also do, again, within levels. So maybe you're going to look at within your location. You can also compare processes. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind, is maybe you're not going to compare location, maybe you're going to compare processes. So maybe we're going to look at efficiencies. Maybe we're going to look at how frequently encounters are completed. I know that's come up quite a bit in discussions and in a few different assignments. But that would be one thing to take a look at in terms of comparison. You might also want to look at, if you're going to look at comparison and benchmarking, again, you can do internal, but don't forget to do external. And some of the options, I tried to give you some ideas on what you could look at. And most of you, I think a good chunk of you are aware of the Hospital Compare website, right, the public one. All of these are things that you guys should be able to access. So Hospital Compare is one thing that you could look at. Dartmouth has one as well. And then you've got, you can look at HEDIS for outpatient, or you can look at ORIX for your inpatient care. So all of these are things that you might be able to use in terms of benchmarking options if you decide that you want to do a comparison project. So I just wanted to point those out. This is page 3 and page 4 in your lecture notes. So that might be something that you could look at. Also, when you're looking at improvements, what are things that you might be interested in terms of doing an improvement project? What are some things you could look at? So you can look at overall performance. You can look at process improvement, right? Maybe we want to improve service line, a specific service. And remember, thinking about service. Service might be an actual service line, but service could also be something like improving parking. So maybe you've got valet parking, maybe you've got a shuttle running from a parking lot, a remote parking lot, off to somewhere else. Also, services might be phone calls. So getting, when a veteran calls in, getting them to be able to talk to a real person, or callbacks. So looking at lowering those missed opportunities. Those are some things that I've seen that's come up in discussions, in the discussion boards, is around the telephone and just kind of how you know, receiving calls or making calls to, you know, try to get people to not have missed appointments, so no shows for appointments. So that might be something. Services might also be looking at something from a facility standpoint. So remember, when we're thinking about services, it may or may not be an actual service line, okay? You might also think about doing improvements around marketing. So marketing to a specific patient group, marketing to a specific part of your catchment area, thinking things along those lines. So what I want to kind of point out here is that process improvement is one type of project that you could have, but you may also have, you could have an improvement project around performance, around services, around marketing as well. So don't forget that even though we covered process improvement as an entire course in course 2, there are other options for improvement projects beyond just process. So that is something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at these. So that's, in order to kind of go back to that, let me show you the, when I'm looking at your overall view here, that is going to be pages 3, 4, and 5 in lecture 10, in module 10 lecture notes. Might be something to take a look at. Okay, so what other questions do you guys have? We've got a little over 15 minutes left, and I'm about to sneeze, so there's going to be no audio for just a second. Okay, so hopefully I didn't sneeze in anybody's ear. I always try to put myself on mute when that happens so that I don't blow anybody's eardrums out. So what other questions might you guys have? Anything that is, anything around the assignment? Anything around, let's go back to the assignment for the time being. Do you guys have any questions around the what to submit list at all? Anything around details for the assignment? Remember, you're choosing one or the other. Choose an outpatient clinic or an emergency/urgent care, but do not do both. That's just making more work for yourself. So any questions at all on the assignment? Is this pretty clear? Or is there anything, I'm going to assume if there's no questions that everybody's got a pretty good understanding. And like I said, I've covered what I got question-wise in the in email over the weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I answered any questions that you guys have as well. And remember, one thing, again, I just want to remind everybody, you are submitting a memo. Okay, so I will be grading the memo. You can submit your case study file as, you know, kind of just as an extra file, but it is not required, and what I will be grading will be the memo. So the memo needs to be able to stand alone. Okay, so when we're talking about that, anything around, if you're going to do any graphs around timeframes, that needs to be in the memo, not referred to in the case study document. Same thing with your patient characteristics. Any trends that you're looking at in terms of diagnoses or signature or time frames. Any trends that you're doing, any characteristics, anything like that needs to be in the memo, not referring to the case study document. So the memo needs to stand alone. Okay. And as one other reminder, please make sure to name your actual file with your your last name, first initial, homework 5.pdf, not just do the label part when you do the submission. For some reason, I'm still getting files that are only labeled in the course website correctly, but not actually do not have the correct file name. And when I download things from the course website, it downloads it in an entire batch. So it downloads everybody's files all at once. And if you don't have your name on your actual file, in the file name, I have to do process of elimination in terms of uploading the grade. Because I don't know whose file is whose until I get everybody done and I have people who've submitted the file that don't have a grade yet. So the better you do with your file name, the faster you will get your grade and your feedback from me. So just as a reminder, I know there's a few people who are still doing that, and I would rather be able to get your stuff back to you as soon as I can. And it's frustrating on my end as well when I don't know whose file, when I don't know who a particular file belongs to. So, any questions? If there's not any final questions, any questions on what's coming up in course 4 at all? I don't know who's going to be taking course 4 versus who's going to be taking course 4 right away versus who's going to wait for the spring class. But one thing to remember, I think I put this in, actually let's do this really quick. I need to sign. Let me open a, okay. Good to know about it. They haven't set the payment request yet. I'm not really sure what time that is. I will check on that. Because I'm not sure how soon that goes out before the class starts. But let me open up a Word document here and we're going to write down a few things just so we can kind of go through a couple of things. Okay, so let me make the text a little bit bigger for everybody. Okay, so one of the things, okay, so I will check on the tuition. So I will check on the tuition situation. One thing to, as a reminder, we are going to be reusing, so we will reuse materials from this course in course 4. So make sure that you know where you have saved your files to. If you've done case study documents like we've set up, starting with assignment number 2, you will be you'll definitely be ahead of the game in course 4. So we are going to be reusing, we will be reusing homework number 5, and we will also be reusing homework number 3. So make sure that you have, make sure that you guys have the your files, your case study files, available for homework 3 and homework 5. Okay, so you will need your case study files. So know where you put them, because I do not save your documents and I don't have them available. So if you lose them, you'll have to redo the data mining. And I would rather you guys try to minimize the data mining. I try to minimize the amount of data mining in course 4, because you've done so much in course 3 that you have to reuse it all. I prefer not to reuse it all. Okay, so so with that, I want to, like I said, make sure that you know where those case study files are, because I do not keep your documents. Also make sure that you have your feedback files, okay, available for these 2 assignments. Because again, I don't keep those, we don't keep those just because we don't have the server space, truthfully, once we get everything put together. But we will be reusing homework 5 and homework 3, what you've done in that. So if you have your case study file and you have your feedback files for both of those assignments, you will be ahead when you start course 4. So particularly for those people who aren't going to take course 4 until spring, make sure you remember where you saved that, because I won't have access to the files once course 3 is over. Or actually a few weeks beyond that. So we are going to, for those of you who are going to be taking course 4 right away, kind of getting things finished up, like the same thing, make sure you remember where you put them. And you can, if you decided you don't like your what you chose for homework 3, if you want to choose another project for homework 3, you can definitely do that. Just be aware that you're going to have to probably redo some of the data mining. So just kind of, that's something to be aware of, that you can choose a different project when we get to course 4 and we reuse the materials from course 3, but be aware that you may need to do additional data mining. Okay, and I think Karen says that she thinks the payment window opens on October 20th. If you give me just a quick second, please hold everybody. Let me look to, I might be able to look here really quickly and give you a little bit better idea of what, one second while I get that pulled up. So talk amongst yourselves for just a second here. I'm trying to make sure that, okay, so I am pulling up Course 4, it says registration ends today and payment window opens. Here, let me show you this. Okay, so you guys should be able to see this. This is from the main HACP site. So I went down to the course schedule on this, and when I look at course 4 for fall, it's saying payment window opens on the 20th. So I think that'll answer the question in terms of the payment. And then registry. So payment window will open on the 20th, closes on Halloween, and we will start the class on the 16th. So you guys will have a little bit of a break in between. And just so everybody knows, I do want to let you guys know that we keep course 3 open for a few weeks beyond the course close date, so that you guys can get your feedback files downloaded, see your grades, etc. If you have any questions, all of that type of thing. Also, with that being said, I will send out an email to the class when all of the final grades have been put in. One of the things that I need to double check is to make sure that the letter grade is matching up with the percentages in the syllabus. I believe that they are, but I want to do one double check before I send out a final grade to everybody. And so I will send out a final email when all of the feedback documents are uploaded and your final grades are done, so that you guys will know before course 4 starts. You'll know when to go in and get that feedback file downloaded. Okay, so I will send out an email to the whole class when that is done. I believe that you guys also get an email notification when the feedback file gets uploaded to your individual grade book. But I will send out a complete kind of, congratulations, you finished course 3. Here's all the final information that you need to know, etc., etc. I'll send something out to the entire class once I get everything finalized in the system, and that will definitely be before course 4 starts. So I usually try to get that done within about a week after the course ends. So that's one of the things to just kind of be aware of. You'll have a couple of week break in there, but I will be sending out an email to everybody once I get everything put together from once I finalize everything for course 3. So, and again, this is the same course schedule that everybody can get off of the main HACP page. So if you are also looking for the spring schedule, this just happens to be fall schedule. But you can also, if you're waiting until spring to take course 4, the spring schedule should also be posted up on the website as well. Okay, what other questions? Anything at all? We've got about 5 minutes left. Okay. If there are no other questions, we're going to go ahead and end a few minutes early. You might get 5 minutes to kind of poke around and look at things or figure out your payment options. If you haven't registered for course 4 and you're planning on taking, okay, let's try this. Okay, hopefully, if you're not yet registered for course 4 and you're not sure about whether or not you want to take it this fall, you can go ahead and send me an email, and I can kind of take a look at where you're at and make a recommendation for you one way or another in terms of taking course 4. And again, we always offer it in the spring semester as well. So if you can't take it right now, know that it will be available again this spring. So with that, thanks everybody for bearing with me through the audio this time with that kind of weird electronic part. For anybody who was following along on the recording, hopefully that came through just fine. And with any other questions, go ahead and send me an email. And thanks everybody for hanging in there through course 3. And I promise course 4 will be easier, and I will look forward to working with you guys again in course 4 on project analysis. So thanks everyone, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon. And we will, I will get those feedback documents and your grades out to you as soon as I can. Thanks everybody, have a great day.